I suppose, about 15 artists and curators about 3 years ago, and we wanted to have a project space and some studios. And we wanted to make the studios of a higher standard that was normally available in Birmingham. And so we managed to secure both these units, and when we moved in, we were the only people in this whole complex. And since then, lots of other arts organisations have moved in, and it's been really great for the area. So you just saw another gallery space just down there, which haven't got anything on, but they've just opened. So the general design for the 8 studios, we've kind of changed ours a bit to. I share with an artist who I do some writing with, and the front space we've changed into a bar because we get a lot of our good ideas in the bar, and so we decided to turn our studio into a pub. So every now and then, we're in a process of changing over at the moment, but we do have talks and events in this studio, and me and Chris sit and write in here. So we normally make we make like an art fanzine, and we do a lot of art writing, and unfortunately I don't have any of these left, but it's all online. And we're recently in Charles Saatchi's magazine. If you ever go to London, we've got an article in Charles Saatchi's Art and Music magazine where it's a sort of vaguely humorous take on artist-led gallery spaces. So if you're going to London in your time, be sure to pick one of those up. And so this is largely my other work, and this work involves a collage-based practice, which I suppose I work with industrial found materials and collections. So all I really need is this space for my other work, but then this other space is quite flexible. But these walls aren't part of the original design. I suppose if we go back into the main space, and I think a lot of people, because it's so close to London, would come and study in Birmingham and then move to London, or base themselves in London. And now it's, Manchester is further enough away to be separate. But it's suddenly, so for instance, the Flat Pack Festival's happening in the next few weeks, and there seems to be something every week. And I think this model of smaller studio groups, in the past it's tended to be like artists all grouped together in one big mass, and really that's not very effective. So there's only 12 of us in the organisation, and because there's only 12 of us, only 3 directors, we're really quite flexible, and so the project space is run by a rotating group of curators. So there's not one person's vision to what goes on up there. We don't show the studio holders' work in the gallery space, but it's the project space is about exactly what it's to attract people like you to come in to then so it's kind of like a beacon for people. So it kind of increases the profile of the artist here by default, really, kind of thing. Well, there is a waiting list, and when studios become available, there isn't a policy on studio holders moving out, because we're the original founders of the group. We're in a weird situation where we could expand the studios, and the ideal situation would be to become self-sufficient and not have to apply for any funding. But we're wary of the fact that if you expand and take in another 8 artists, those 8 artists might not be as productive. I don't know. It's kind of like all of a sudden you've got more artists and you become less flexible as an organisation. So there's a dilemma for us to remain quite a dynamic organisation, but then also attract more money. So we're looking at the moment to currently get more income from other means. So rather than just expand the studio space. However, if the studios, when the studios are available, they're advertised, and the whole group decides who they select. So recently, David Rowan is the newest. The criteria for for getting a studio here. I suppose when we first started as a group, but one of the best things about the group was we had a photographer, a graphic designer, a book designer, a sound artist, performance artist, musicians. You know, so the dynamic of a group really helps the project space. So for instance, upstairs there's 2 or 3 of us who help with the install. So those walls, everything you see up there I built, you know, with Dave and Matt, and we've kind of we pool our resources as a group for the exhibition. So if a photographer leaves us, we would probably want to replace it with another photographer, and so the criteria changes depending on who's leaving.
So you definitely cooperate.
Yeah, although I suppose, you know, that ethos of a group has perhaps changed with time, because there's more artists who are very successful. So Juno Projects, who I think are in, I think I've heard them. They're represented by a gallery in London, and they've just had a show at Kerry Hand, which is their gallerist. It's right round the corner from Tate Modern, and you know they're doing stuff all across the country. Simon and Tom Bloor, very successful. Stuart Whipps, James Langdon is in Melbourne, judging a graphic design competition at the moment. You know, so as artists' careers get a bit more progressive. I'm here. I'm not as successful as them yet, but it's kind of like as they get less time, they get less time to work with the whole organisation. Yeah. So I suppose it will change to becoming much more the gallery will look after itself, and there's a system of people volunteer, there's internships, and there's going to be 2 new roles to apply for to help Cheryl, who's the gallery director. So previously no one's got any money from the organisation, but in the last year we've managed to start paying 1 person to start running. Which is great because it means it's much more professional. Yeah. And if you're constantly doing stuff in your spare time, it's, you know, in between other jobs. So I mean, I have a job 4 days a week and my own practice, and you know, there's not a lot of time left to help run the organisation. So the right person comes along with lots of money, because the original plan was to, you see this road here, they were going to re-establish the canal, and they were going to build flats onto the canal inlet. And so, but I don't think in the short term there's any danger of that, because it's just not going to happen. Okay. But long term, there is every possibility that we would have to move. But you know, it's. I think we've got a 10-year lease, so the duration of the whole thing is probably in 10 years' time. We're all going to be in a different position, you know. So 10 years, it's not. But it would be nice to keep the organisation going. You know, the other studios show the original design of the studios. I mean, you can see the double height. If you can imagine how they're kind of shared, and a lot of the other studios, the wall is shared as well. It's a nice design concept, and the people who, if you go on the website, you can see the company which designed and made them. I think if it was left to me, when I first saw the designs, I thought, why are we not building onto the window? And why can I not have a bigger studio space? Because I looked at the plans and I was going, oh, they're too small. Yeah. And yet I really understand now the advantage of them. They've just been great, because if you notice, this whole guttering, when we first moved in, it completely froze up and cracked. And so it was leaking all the way through here. And whether it was by accident or design, it would saved us, because if we'd built everything onto the window, it would have ruined everything. And so it was little things like that which I wouldn't have had a clue until we worked with the art. You can see that we share the units with, this is Avonstar, a sort of kitchen supply company. And there used to be car manufacturers and everything in here, and gradually it's trying to change into more arts-led cultural organisation. There's an art shop beneath us, which is a bit traditional, but you know, I don't know, they seem to be doing all right. It's just like people come down here and buy pots of paint, you know. I just brought you here because the Icon Gallery, which you probably are aware of, because since we've moved down here, we convinced the landlord to build this new docking bay for the canal boat, and so before that was just a wall and you couldn't get onto the canal, and now I kind of run in an off-site program, and it's part of their youth developments program where art students work on the canal boat and they go to London and back, and they have a cinema on there. And so it's kind of quite a nice little complex. And it's like an example of what us being here has had an effect. This is a canal which goes over the River Ray. That bridge there goes over, and underneath the original river that Birmingham was based on. It's just a trickle, and you would see it at the custard factory. At the back of the custard factory, you can see it. And I think it's a real shame that Birmingham doesn't have that large geographical statement. And they've been talking about flooding the River Ray to create a lake. Because from the original buildings in Birmingham, a lot of them had moats around them, and Birmingham's got this nice canal network which is kind of hidden, and so I suppose from a personal point of view, I know Baz, we're always quite interested in these big ideas which could change the idea of Birmingham.